you're outputting from your computer to the headphones, it doesn't output from your computer to the TV. So there would be nothing for
Output,
the TV to then put into my headphones.
output. All right.
What?
So I think we're officially streaming now, except for okay, cool. We have
I
a
know
picture.
because
All right. Well, I'm
Hold on,
gonna
I
skip
gotta
the section.
hold on. Give me a few minutes. I got a sponsor on the line. It'll take me a few minutes to sort of line everything up.
Well, this isn't the Red Writ. This is After Hours, and we're streaming on our new night Thursdays. And I would like to do some special thanks to all sorts of people, especially the Patreon, Tim Roberts, Daniel Hulker, and Nostalgic. Thanks to Couchfire Media, and thank you to our Replay Productions. Please visit our Linktree at Linktree/DreadLore. This is not the Red Writ. This is After Hours on our new Thursday night. We got some really special guests tonight, and in the next coming weeks, we're going to have a few other really special guests that I'm not going to tell you about until we're 100% confirmed. So that is exciting. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm only guessing that Lee cannot hear us, or
I look red that can't hear us.
well, I can't even. Well, I'm sorry. What was your handle again?
JazziCabbage.
JazziCabbage, and what was their handle?
I love how you're
Ariel.
scared. Like I know what just happened.
Are you maxing? Are you maximum effort?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm taking maximum effort here to like. So we're gonna talk about some games, different kinds of what gets us into tabletop role-playing game. We're gonna talk about ourselves. We're gonna talk about the world, and we're gonna talk about all things nerdy, geeky, otherwise interesty. In this After Hours show, because I have Max and JazziCabbage on, we'll probably go a little bit into space and our one shot that we did with Gnome, or I think it was Home Sweet Home, and then we got Hulker here, who is a regular on the everything we do, so Into Space and the Red Writ. Anyway, let's get started. I want to know, and anybody can answer this how they like. What gets us into gaming? So let's start with you, Hulker. What gets you into gaming? What kind of games do you like?
Are you talking about role playing games or?
Oh, I jumped. Did you have a sponsor?
Well, hold on. I'm not. We're still hashing out the terms. Okay.
You're still not quite there yet. All
We're
right.
not there yet.
Why don't I ask JazziCabbage and Max what gets them to gaming, what kind of games they're into, and what's going on. So I'll let you continue your sponsorship. Promo.
Right. Yeah. Secure those negotiations or whatever it is you do
Yeah,
in the boardroom.
We all want to get paid for this.
Yes. So we believe in you.
What's going on, Jazzy? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, I appreciate you inviting me on. And once Maxxy can actually hear you, I'm sure that he would agree to the sentiment. But in terms of what got me into gaming, it was one of the first things that me and my dad connected on. One of the only things we've ever connected on, really. But in terms of like what got me into like tabletop RPGs and like the community of it was like making friends in the old AOL days with people across the country and the world in some cases, and like being able to interconnect with friends that you may not as easily be able to connect with. Sometimes a phone call can be awkward, but it's not as hard to jump in a party and play a game that's distracting you. And the same thing applies to the tabletop. I mean, it's an amazing storytelling tool, and it's a great community builder. It's like you bring people you like and trust around you, and you come up with a story and create the lore and the environment and all this stuff. I don't know. It's pretty damn cool in my opinion. All right, I'm gonna pass off the mic, and I think since I put the question in my answer, I think that Maxxy's got the T.
Do it.
Yes.
And I'm gonna make us public.
It's
so
not
people can
allowed.
actually see
Jack, get your shit together. Thank you.
Yes. Do it.
I wasn't allowed to play video games for my entire childhood. So I would sneak into my brother's bedroom when they were all out working at the wood shop. Which sounds a lot more banjo-y than it actually was. Or maybe it doesn't. It's pretty banjo-y. So when they were working out in the wood shop, I would go in and play like Assassin's Creed. I played all of Fable 2 that way. And then the second I got my own place, I ended up buying a PS3. And I really like gaming because it's something I'm different than you because I'm not as much of a social gamer as we didn't have good internet at my house until I was 22. So we had dial-up up until then. And so I don't do a lot of the social gaming, but I like the repetition of it. I use it as like a coping skill a lot of the times because I can just I've played a lot of Mario games so much that I can beat each level without even looking at it. So I can just hear the music and be completely talking to you and finish the level.
Do you play like new Mario or is it old Mario or do they still make Mario?
New Mario or old Mario?
Both, all the Mario. There's
Every
only a few that I haven't played, and I haven't played the new Super Mario RPG because honestly, I don't like that turn-based in video games. It's just not. Except Deltarune. I really like Deltarune, but it's more of it's for the vibe, not for the gameplay,
Like an art style, or
Yeah, the art style and the plot, because it's based on you beat people with love, essentially.
Well, if only it worked like that in real life.
Right. For each of the enemies, you have the option to attack, but you can be miss or tell them something heartfelt or it's so silly.
Nice.
But I definitely Super Mario Sunshine is definitely my favorite. That one's on the GameCube. Except for the god awful camera.
Is that a relatively new game or an older game?
No, it was in 2002, I believe. It was initially meant for the Nintendo 64, but Nintendo hyped up the 64 a little bit too much, and so a lot of those games ended up getting redesigned for the GameCube instead because they bit off more than they could chew, and Super Mario Sunshine was one of those. And so was Animal Crossing.
the games are bigger than the system requirements.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. That's sounds
Whatever.
like
You know what I'm trying to say.
a failure in and
Yeah.
equipment. Well, that's wild. Did you see I think there's a new Mario film. Did you see the film, or
I haven't seen the
strictly-
film.
is that like an interest to you, or is that
I don't know yet because I've thought about it and if it's bad, I'm gonna be so mad.
have they made a good Mario film? I
Oh.
remember
Do you remember
they
the
made a
OG
film.
one?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh yes, I do. I saw that in theaters.
You did?
Yes.
Watching it at my grandma's house. But I think I was still too young to understand what's on the TV isn't real, so I think I was scared for a month.
I don't remember much. It's been a long time.
Often known as Goombas.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
anthropomorphic SFX.
YouTube being the way it is, I know that I saw like a secret hack to where you can beat Mario in like 42 seconds or something like that recently. Do you know all the hacks?
The
or
the
you-
OG Mario. Yeah, I do know.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. There's a pipe, and I think it's level 1, or it might be level
Yeah,
2.
It's
Level
in the
1, 2.
It's
Yeah,
it's
it is
in the
level 1,
dungeon.
2. It's in the dungeon, and you can go over, and then you can skip basically the entire game.
But it's not
There's
going
some-
over. It's like going through or something.
Yeah. It's like you're going through the pipes, and then you end up, I don't know, in the toilet of the last level.
So that was something that I was
I've never
subjected
seen
to
fun
early.
crawl into a
No, I would be so concerned.
What about you, Hulker? What got you into gaming? What kind of games are you into?
Tonight's sponsor is very near and dear to my heart.
Do it.
Tonight's sponsor is the Winesburg, Ohio Parliamentary LARP. Yes, the Winesburg Parliament live-action role-playing group consists of a quorum of self-elected individuals who divide up into 2 houses of players and reenact the process of attaching riders to appropriations bills. If you are ever in Winesburg, Ohio on a Saturday night, please check out the Winesburg Parliament LARP, and don't ever check out the Winesburg Vampire LARP down the road that totally sucks.
I mean,
Thank you for that sponsorship. I feel like we're all happier now because now we're more financially the same as we were before. But
Don't ever check out that Vampire LARP, the Winesburg Vampire LARP. They suck. They're horrible.
Good job.
The storyteller totally did not get expelled from that LARP at all. He just wants to make sure of that, right? This is not an attempt. This is not some rival attempt that he thought of after one of his stories didn't go well, and he realized he didn't build his character that well, and he just couldn't take it. It had nothing to do with that. He'd been planning this for years. Okay,
no spite. Spite free.
none.
So what got you into being into games, Hulker?
Okay. I remember 1985, and I went over to my uncle's house, and he plugged in Super Mario Brothers that he had just bought from, I think, Walmart or wherever. And he started playing it. Huh?
Was it the one with Duck Hunt, or was it?
Yeah.
The,
I think it.
the mat.
No.
You know the mat that you would like with the where you would.
It was the one with Duck Hunt, yeah.
So it had the gun.
Okay, so it is the Donkey Kong one. That's what you're talking about.
No,
I'm
the
the Mario
Mario
expert, I can answer that.
the Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
It's the
so you're
one with
talking
Mario
about the
Brothers,
movie.
the original Mario Brothers, and Duck Hunt.
Okay, so that is the one that has Donkey Kong in it.
I don't think that was the.
Donkey Kong?
No, I don't.
They just had the two
No.
games. There was an Olympic one where that came with like a little plastic mat that you could like if you ran you would lose.
Yeah, I played that over at a friend's as well.
And like the trick was like you just moved your heels up and down really
Yeah.
fast. It wasn't about running.
And I'll also tell you, I had one of the worst products. Probably the second worst product Nintendo ever put out, and that was the Power Glove.
I remember that too.
Yeah. Oh, the commercials hyped it up so much, right? But it didn't really work. But I eventually got a Nintendo. I played a few games. I really liked them. I think I eventually got a Super Nintendo. I would have been fine with a Sega Genesis, but I ended up with a Super Nintendo.
You use the Game Genies. Remember the?
Oh hell yes!
where you-
Yeah,
like,
and I even took some of the codes and I would modify them by one letter, right? And you would get even crazier effects. Yeah.
True.
Yeah, and there was a rival to that one too called the Pro Action Replay.
Uh-huh.
It was just another version of the Game Genie, but it wasn't as well known, but it still worked.
I
Nice.
also think of the
So-
Game Shark.
Yeah, that too.
Shark. I've not heard of that one.
It was
Did you
for
get the
handhelds
magazines?
mainly. I
Okay.
did. I was the nerd that had all the magazines.
Me
the
too.
Game Informers and all
Game
that
Pro.
jazz. Yeah, and then what was I liked the manuals too, like the stuff that you would be like, I don't know, for Pokemon it would have like all 151 in there, and it'd be like have like
Yeah.
the locations. It's like a physical book.
I'll see if
that
I have
gave
any
you
left.
the
I'll be
answers.
right back.
Has any of this stuff like affected you in real life? I mean, your day jobs, etc. Like, you don't have to go into detail what you do for a living, but it has gaming influenced like your chosen professions. Am I alone? I feel like I'm no.
You are not alone.
I always feel like
So how has it affected? Well, I mean,
did it or did it? I mean, did it have any influence over your chosen profession?
I definitely enjoy the tactile storytelling experience that gaming gives. So, I don't know if it necessarily affected what I do to, like, in terms of like my job, because like as a camera operator or like a shooter. Ah, there it is, Game Pro. It's the real deal.
The stars of night. Is that 1993 right there? Is that
Yeah, hold on.
pulling out some like vintage vintage paper?
Memorabilia. There's the word I'm looking for.
Nice. That thing's
Yeah.
in mint. That
That
is
is
in
in
mint
really good shape.
condition. Yeah.
Almost.
Near mint.
Near mint. I've got the top
Oh,
100.
did you have one of those? Those little controllers? Like I remember when that controller came out, and I don't remember it being any better than just having like a handheld little poopy thing.
All the gimmicky Nintendo shit was terrible, dude. In the beginning, I don't know. I always did want that robot that would like change your cartridges for you.
Yeah.
It was a Japanese exclusive. Anyway, I don't know.
So
I
real
do
life.
art. I do art as my job, and I do think that enjoying like the creative space of storytelling, growing up and into this point, I think it has probably benefited me in a way that I may not realize. I guess that'll be my answer.
So like real life, like if we think about real life, has gaming affected your life and your work in a positive way or a negative way?
I think positively.
You do. That's
Yeah. It's a time suck. It is.
But
It does take a lot of.
are the benefits? Do you find benefit from like, for instance, a role playing game?
Oh
Do you work like what we do with DreadLore? Do you play other games other than DreadLore? Did you play Dungeons and Dragons or Cthulhu or Vampire or
No, but I've always been familiar with like how the system works and things like that. And watched a lot of like, I don't want to name drop other, podcasts and shows, but there's a
name
lot
drop?
of D&D.
We can use the
Yeah,
meta.
so
Let's talk.
Dimension 20, Critical Role, like all those guys. Even there's a, the Harmon Quest, things like that really kind of showed me, because that's what I was reticent to get into tabletopping, was that I wasn't really sure like if I would be able to stay invested in a turn-based style of like interaction, because I struggle with that in video games. But there's a lot of storytelling elements and things like that that have made a huge difference in my day-to-day life in terms of like being able to improvise and problem solve and like you end up in a lot of shitty situations unintentionally when with the the arbiter, so to speak.
Sure. Do you think do you think these games have any kind of therapeutic, like for people who've got PTSD or have are struggling with mental health issues in some way?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's an outlet. I feel like there's like a spectrum on which that balance has to be good with interaction and integration to society. Like, like and the tabletop is a good way to break yourself out of like that slump of like not being social. It's like a really nice in between space. And a lot of people that I know that struggle with, like, I mean, my struggle, let me rephrase this. I don't want to generalize for other people because I can't speak for their experience. However, like the routine of like showing up, just having a thing to be at is honestly a huge boon when you're struggling or when I'm struggling. And then the ability to like kind of, again, I'll reiterate it, like the fantasy aspect, the being able to be outside of yourself and interact with an environment that's not the one that's giving you problems right now is a really nice escape.
Do you get more out of like a video game, or do you get more out of like maybe more conversational game, like a DreadLore or a Dungeons and Dragons?
So I think it's a little bit, and it depends. 'Cause I've done other, well, I have played other prototype tabletop indie games, and
Mhm.
like in their very infancy phases.
Or like a
And
Magic the card game, or like the board games or something like that.
hit me with
Like,
the question one more time. I think I got
yeah,
lost. I lost the
yeah.
plot.
Do you get, what do you get more out of? Do you get more out of playing a video game, or do
Oh,
you get like do you get more like
depends on the intensity of the story and like how much I'm interacting with it. So like we've done a couple of good like into space, name dropping. Like that's a pretty immersive universe, and I get into that pretty easily. There's a game on console that I really got into a while back called Greedfall. It had a really good story. It had pretty interesting combat. Um, I can say that I experienced the same level of immersion and enjoyment and escapism as in both places.
and okay. Speaking of escapism, Crowbear. What
Oh,
is Crowbear? Can we
Crowbear.
if you're gonna, because we explored Crowbear and the home sweet home one shot, and I played with you on Crowbear on a couple other things, and as a DM it was very difficult to, like, Crowbear is very powerful. Can you give me some aspects of yourself that you've put into Crowbear, that you might uh or elaborate maybe on some of that specifically?
Sure. Oh, okay. Sorry, the dogs are like all piling in our laps,
Good.
causing a ruckus. Um, so what is Crowbear? I'll start there. Crowbear is a 7-foot tall anthropomorphic crow uh, that lured a lumberjack, heard music, and made a deal with the demon to be able to play music. And the deal entails, luring a lumberjack and having a form to take and things of that nature. But just imagine a 7-foot tall, half human, half crow, um, thing lurking in the shadows that can only mimic sound rather than speak.
Right.
I don't know.
So what aspect of JazziCabbage is Crowbear? Like, is there any trait that Crowbear has that you can connect with on a level?
So there's this desire to like be helpful and not have to think so much. Like just like be able to be like, oh, shiny, and chase the shiny, and it be fine, or unintentionally be helpful. It's nice to be able to like get out of that driver's seat a little bit, and feel I don't know, it's a goofy spot, and I kind of enjoy feeling like I'm interacting with the space, but not actually pushing any buttons, so to speak. Because Bobby is really does a lot of the communicating and the thinking, and like like that's not my job.
Sure. So you rely on Max to do the hard
Do the hard stuff.
All right.
and
Well,
it's just good to lean on somebody in that way.
I'll ask Max the same question here in a second. I'm going to ask Hulker. So, out of your characters into space, and in the Red Writ, what aspect of Tony or maybe some other characters do you think Hulker lives in? I know we've talked about Tony quite a bit, and I know we've talked about some of your other characters on After Hours, but you yourself, what aspect of and maybe pick one of the characters and kind of give a brief description.
I'll start with Tony.
Okay, good.
So, like Tony, I live in the 80s. But in all seriousness, I don't know. I think the part about Tony being a former priest. I'm not a former priest. I didn't go to seminary. But given my background, it could have happened. There, but for the grace of God, go I. But it didn't happen. So I kind of relate to it. That's probably the big thing that I could think of. That
sure. Why a priest? I mean, what drew you to the cloth, at least to create this character? I mean,
I was raised Protestant, and
yeah,
it would have been that pulpit, but it would have been something similar. I thought about it for a minute. That never happened.
And do you ever, like, how do you approach your characters? Do you use them to get things that are going on in your own life? Do you try to express yourself through? Is there something about that?
So I try and first, given the background and the setting that we have to play the game in. My first goal is to make a character whose background is interesting, but also fits with the setting. Tony is 30 years old, and but part of the going into the priesthood, and this is probably something that unless you know your history, may not have been obvious. And of course, it doesn't apply to me because I grew up at a different time. Was that going into college at the time meant that you were ineligible for the draft. Now he would have turned 20 as the last people being drafted were being sent to Vietnam, were being inducted into the Army. It ended in I think 71 or 72, but it would have been foremost on his mind. And it might have been the thing that tipped someone like that over into saying, "Oh, okay, I'll just go to college. I'll just go down this path." And it probably, no doubt, caused a lot of other people to do the same thing, including people who will later go into national politics, who just mysteriously get deferment after deferment after deferment. That's a whole other story. Anyways.
Well, and after September 11th, I mean, I think we were probably both the right age. If they
actually, yeah, and well, me especially. Yeah. You were probably not. Because of the way draft law works. And here we go on a tangent, but I'm going to go on this tangent anyways.
Yeah, tell me about draft law.
Once you turn 21,
Yeah.
your chances of being drafted are very, 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 very low. I was 20. That's the age under current law that they would take you.
I was over 21 for sure at that.
So I remember everyone thinking, because I was talking to people my age, and we realized really quickly that if there was a draft, it's going to be us, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And in fact,
and I was in college at the time, trying to see how long I could go to college because I didn't want to get out of college.
it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked. They nerfed that exemption after the 70s.
Yeah.
But it's all irrelevant. It didn't happen. So, anyways, as back to character building. I try and create a character that's interesting, whose background is somewhat unique, somewhat original, and I think Tony's fits that. Fits in with the times, and then I guess I try and wing it from there.
Sure. Is Tony a wizard? I mean, or is he magical?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have not been briefed as such.
Yeah. Well, it would be metagaming, I guess, if you told me anyway. Because
yeah.
All right. Now, does anybody here play any other games? Like what? Actually, I think we kind of went over that.
I want to say I spent a couple of years playing a type of game that most people are not aware of. And it's called a multi-user dimension, i.e. a MUD. Has anyone ever played that?
Yeah, I played MUDs.
You play MUDs? Oh.
Like
imagine World of Warcraft from the command line.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But I mean that's
it's surprisingly effective as a game once you get into it.
Sure. I mean, social media came like the IRC chat rooms, a lot of the what was there was a some kind of dungeon crawl. I'm trying to remember what it was in the 80s that you would go around from room to room, and like it was a game that you were supposed to play, but people just found themselves in like different rooms and they would talk, find themselves talking.
It's an IRC chat room turned into a game where a lot of people are playing, and your character can fight other people and can die and come back. It's very much a D&D simulator from DOS or the terminal or command line or what have you. I played it for 2 years.
I mean, remember
pretty fun.
IRC being IRC used to seem so advanced, and now we have pictures and videos. It's amazing to have watched the internet, the way it's expanded and what.
And it was also the only thing that would work over dial-up reliably.
Sure, dial-up, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember downloading photos, and it would take. Like it would just do sections of the photo. That was exciting.
We used to have
all right.
put dial-up through our in our laptops, but the cord would get jerked out by somebody else who was like walking. So you'd be downloading something and somebody would trip over your cord and fucking.
So, Max, I wanted to ask you about your characters because I asked Jazzy and I asked Hulker. So what aspect of yourself have you put into maybe the character that you play with Crowbear, or do you did you had an Into Space character at one point as well?
Yeah, I had his name was DL. He was the sniper.
What do you bring of yourself into the character, like into this fictional superhero type powerful character? What do you gravitate?
Well, all of my characters up until this point have been some kind of builder or maker in some of their aspects. Um, I I think that's because like I genuinely, if I couldn't find my place building or fixing something in a scenario, I have no idea what I would do. That's usually my first thing because when we were doing first campaign and I was zombie, my first thought was like nobody has any skills about like what if something breaks that we need. Like what if your one main weapon breaks and nobody is there to fix it? Like then we're probably fucked. But definitely, I'm very much a problem solver, and I bring that into all of my characters. Like I put something around.
Does Zavi have any regrets, or does Zavi live in the moment?
Zavi is more of a live in the moment because he's always been up until further kind of like didn't really like a lone person, the lone goblin, just fixing things. He would like freelance and like go into towns and like find people who had broken shit and be like, I can fix it for you, and that's kind of his life. So he doesn't really when it comes to people, he doesn't really care about consequences. So I don't really think he has a lot of regrets. Maybe he regrets having friends because he gets annoyed very easily.
And the same with Hulker. Do you think that Tony or any of your other characters have any regrets that you can speak to without metagaming too much? What is your character in Into Space's name again? I
Burgess.
Yeah. Does Burgess have any regrets, or are they?
I don't think I'm very good at playing characters with regrets.
They're very much in the moment. Or do they have any goals? Does Tony have a goal? What is
Tony probably, before all of this happened, I think Tony was probably trying to. He wasn't going to be a border guard forever. Was trying to make his way into another life or career that he wasn't really envisioning having, but kind of found himself in. Now, with everything else that has happened, I'm not so sure that a guy like Tony is going to think about that for a while. I think it's more in the moment, punctured by long periods of what have I done? What am I going to have to do? Who's next? It's pretty harrowing stuff that this story has gone through. It kind of reminds me of like a really good Call of Cthulhu game, where your characters just end up in all sorts of harrowing situations, one right after another, in quick succession. And I don't really know how a character like that would respond. I'm trying my best, but at times I feel like I'm kind of at a loss because I think about what someone like that would go through, and it's a lot.
Now that knowing this about Tony, or learning this about Tony, what does Tony think about all the semi-war crimes that his friends are doing around him? Like Leah kind of killing people, and Nord and Simon also kind of killing people.
So if I said I knew what Tony would think about all of that, then to be honest, I think a character like Tony is thinking about it too much. Or at least I'm assuming that a character like Tony is thinking about it too much. There's not a lot. There has not been a lot of time to really come to terms with what has happened. This is all very much in the moment after moment after moment. I don't know that I have a good answer to that question.
And Max and Jazzy, do your characters have any thoughts on the nature of how some of these TTRPG G games can go pretty quickly into the war crimes realm of things? I mean, is that human nature that we gravitate towards a form of violence, or is it just because these characters are put into these dangerous situations that we just kind of talk about? And maybe is there a do you think there's any therapeutic benefit to the violence, or do you think it's we're just bad people at heart?
All of the above.
That's not enough answer. You gotta embellish. Give me a little more.
You want to go first?
Yeah.
All right.
I think that Zombie has like a lot of cynicism about him, in that he kind of thinks that like no one problem says something about society. So like one bad thing, or the fact that there are several bad things, doesn't really mean anything, because they're all individual. And it's less about like having feelings about what's going on and more about just fixing the problem in front of you, and then going and fixing the next problem that then is in front of you, and not thinking about it too much.
Do you think that, like, in daily, how like we're subjected to, whether we kind of like it or not, just by going to the store, or going to a bar, or going to a place where we're subjected to it on a regular basis? Do you think that TTRPGs normalize violence, or do you think they allow for a conversation to be had that maybe keeps it in the zeitgeist, or keeps the conversation going? Do you think it's good, or do you think it kind of normalizes violence, or do you think it's a way that we deflect?
I think it's a good thing. I
Personal
don't necessarily think deflect. I think that one, it's really interesting to see what like a disinhibited version of you would do when there's danger in the way, because we all come into contact with danger, or at a moment when you would have to fight. And so it's interesting to be able to attack that kind of situation without having any real harm. But of course, then you have the emotional harm of what happens to your character. It's the same thing that happened with the whole reason that the corrupted blood thing that happened in World of Warcraft became epidemiological research, was because they made the argument that a lot of people have put so much work into their characters that they had the same emotional attachment to them that they would have to themselves.
I have no idea what that is. So can you expand on the?
You want to cliff
I
notes?
really don't.
This sounds
I don't know
interesting.
what
I want to hear
Yeah.
more. I want to hear the story.
Cool. So let Maxxy do a cliff notes on what he's talking about, because it's super fascinating, and it honestly really does a good job of answering your question in a unintentionally good way, but without generalizing for gamers. If that makes any sense at all?
Yeah, say it. Let's hear it.
So hit it.
So there's this thing called the corrupted blood incident in World of Warcraft. It's Blizzard made a virus that was supposed to attack in a specific area in World of Warcraft. That is not what happened. The code went haywire and it infected everything. And once you were infected, you would keep auto dying, and there was no way to save your character. So a character that you put a lot of money into, a lot of time into, was not recoverable. And it took them, I don't remember how long it took them to fix it, but it was enough that it became a part of the World of Warcraft like culture for a little bit. And then epidemiologists came in, because this is a pandemic in a virtual world, and we can see what happens. And what happened was a lot of things. One of the things was that people tried to craft their own remedies. You remember COVID, when people were trying to drink bleach and take ivermectin?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I don't
literally the
know what those things-
epidemiologists that did the research paper
Little
on corrupted
horse.
blood.
Yeah.
people called them and they were like, "What do we do?" And they were like, "We told you. We wrote this paper years ago. We said this was going to happen, and we were right. I don't know what to tell you." And people would use it as a weapon as well. They would go infect other people. And then there were a lot of people that would go in and help each other. So basically, this entire virtual pandemic that happened accidentally, and Blizzard did not want research papers to be done about it initially. They wouldn't let it happen because they were embarrassed because it was their fault. They did a whoopsie, and a lot of virtual people
pissed
died.
off.
Yeah. But it was a really cool way to see how pandemics actually work. And I think the same about like tabletop games, because there's a point at which it gets to be too much, but I don't think I've ever reached that. But I think it's about the violence being contextually appropriate.
Right. Is it functional? Are you problem solving with that violence?
If somebody's behind you and you chopped them up with an axe, like that would be some kind of violence that maybe I wouldn't be there for.
And
that's
was
not
this
like that wouldn't.
was the internet virus, was that pre-COVID or post-COVID, or was it?
Oh, it was
before,
much
like years
it was
before.
very pre-COVID.
Okay,
This
so-
happened before I was in grad school, so this was
Okay.
I think it was like 2014 or something.
Interesting. That's wild.
I mean, 6 years does feel like.
Yeah. I actually would
Well, I
love
mean,
to know. I don't know the name
World
of
of
the person that actually
Warcraft is-
built the virus. But like,
I
imagine
think-
having that on your resume. Oopsie poopsie.
I did it too good.
It came out in what, 2008 or 9?
2004.
4. World of
2004.
Warcraft, is that old? Wow. I mean, clearly I have no idea what I'm talking about. And it's a world. Who played it? Did you guys play? Did anybody play it for any amount of time?
I played it briefly when I was in college.
So my dad was into a game called Asheron's Call, which was also like at the same time frame that World of Warcraft came out. And it also was a pay to play, like a monthly fee thing. So we kind of just made a choice and we chose Asheron Calls, which ended up dying eventually. But long to the short, I'm very familiar with the format and I know a lot of people that play it, but I just never invested in it because I was already somewhere else. But I thought about getting into it in the next couple of I've got a PC now. I've thought about it. I have friends that play it.
It was a big decision.
But it's a huge
It's
commitment.
It's a
There's a monthly fee involved.
And
There's time.
Do you want to would you rather make a film or would you rather play World of Warcraft, or is that the same thing? If you're immersed in
and it's a
this world,
skill that you have to keep up.
Yeah.
It's not just something that you can just do randomly. It's a
Sure.
Personally, I'd rather make a trilogy.
Indeed.
I
Saga.
A colleague in grad school that during one of our classes, he admitted to everyone, including our professor, that he and his boyfriend got so into World of Warcraft at one point that they had separate computers, opposite each other, and they would sit in one seat and have sex while playing World of Warcraft.
Wow.
Because they didn't
That
want to
is
stop to have sex.
That's
I didn't know.
intense.
I didn't know that was
I didn't know
possible.
it got that intense. Oh, I won't explain it because he did
and does it-
definitely right in the middle of social psychology.
Do you think fornication, during gameplay, on a video game, do you think that affects negatively or positively your game playing experience, and or does it take away from the experience of actually
Oh, that's a good question.
fornication?
Okay, I have caveats though, because here's my question. Because is this the sex and stuff related to the game that you're playing, or is it not? Because are you just having sex and playing a game, or is the sex that you're having based on what's happening in the game?
Well, I mean, that's tough to say. It's World of Warcraft, so I mean, I don't know
Hey,
a
Jack.
whole
Well, I
lot
mean,
about.
do you play it like I don't know, kind of like strip poker? If this happens in the game, instead of if this happens in the game, take drink. if this
Yeah.
happens in the game, you do the sexual thing. Because I think
Well,
that
that-
would make you more into the game.
I mean,
You
that's a
would
lot
be
different.
extremely goal oriented.
I mean, that's a lot different. I mean, if it's a turn-based strategy game, like, is it different than a world crawl game? I would imagine as well. So if you're playing Civilization, and doing
It's hilarious.
a sexual, having sex, I would imagine that, or playing chess, or doing something that's
Now-
turn-based.
Now
maybe that would
I'm
have.
picturing. You guys know the bit of that guy that in World of Warcraft he leveled his character up all the way only by picking flowers.
Oh, wild. That sounds like
Yeah,
like an exercise in tediousness. Or
I know.
OCD.
It took him so many years. He literally
Yeah.
just like for hours just picking flowers.
I
You know, there
What
is
he's
an
doing when he's
opportunity
on World of
cost.
Warcraft.
yeah, right. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, we listened to that story on Dear Hank and John, and their argument was, at what point is committing to the bit too much? Like, where's the line with the bit?
Well, that leads me to a complete another question. Okay, what media are we listening to that is related to what we're doing? Hank and John, I know nothing about them. Who are Hank and John?
So Hank
They are the
and-
Green Brothers.
They are the Green Brothers. Hank is the science one. So they both started Complexly, which is a nonprofit that distributes education materials to schools. You might see mental floss, a lot of the mental floss videos.
Okay.
You'll see them on like at school. Like actually somebody that I work with, I told her that I listen to Hank Green. She was like, "Oh, that guy that taught me biology." And I was like, "We know two very different versions of that man, but yes,
Same person.
same person that humped every statue in Missoula, Montana as a punishment." They're some of the OG YouTubers. So
Okay,
they started in
gotcha.
2004. And they started out doing a video diary, basically back and forth. It's video essays, every day. And then it blew up. And then also John Green is a famous author. He wrote The Fault in Our Stars. That's the one that most everybody knows him for. And they also have a podcast where they answer questions, give you dubious advice, and answer all the questions, give you all the news from Mars and AFC Wimbledon. So
It's
wow.
his podcast.
it's very ADHD. It's random
Okay.
questions, and you might get a genuine answer, and you might get something completely ridiculous.
Sure. And Hulker, do you have a podcast that you gravitate towards?
So I actually know Hank Green as the science from that angle. Yeah,
Unsurprised. Do you know him
Yeah.
from his band though?
not really.
He
No.
is a musician.
He
No.
had a mathematical band. Like literally, it's mathematics rock.
No, but I think he recently had. I think it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or something to
Yep.
that extent. Yeah.
Yes, he would disagree with you if you said had to him because he's like, you don't not have, you're in remission.
Yeah.
You don't not have it.
Yeah. He's definitely changed a lot since
Okay.
the cancer diagnosis because he used to be the Green brother that is like all very spontaneous and quirky and fun, and John is the brooding existential one, and now Hank is being a little bit broody and existential, and John is trying to compensate by being like out of character and uncomfortably sunny, and you're like, please stop.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, clearly they are they're doing well. They've got nearly 4 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And about 1 billion views on the internet, something that maybe we would be in a different place. Funny note, my YouTube account is actually older than theirs. They joined in 2007 and I joined I think in 2005 or 6.
Damn.
Wow, that's old.
So
I'm just
Yeah.
impressed you've been able to keep up with the password and log in and the email and all the things required to log into it. Motherfucker, I couldn't even get into Discord earlier.
yeah,
Like,
well, it's technology is a beast. It's definitely a beast. All right, I would like to wrap this up with future characters for TTRPG. I want to ask this to each of you. What characters do you want to play next? So after the Red Writ, after Into Space, what is the genre and character that you want to play? We'll start with you, Max. What are you thinking?
I definitely want to play something more combat-y than I have, because I think I've stayed in my comfort zone, because in real life I am the person that fixes things, and in the game I'm the person that fixes things. So I was thinking maybe a paladin, but I'm not
Oh
sure
wow,
yet.
devout. So why someone who's devout like that, or and point,
Again, because
you
it's
know?
against my comfort zone, because
Yeah.
I don't have I don't have that kind of mentality
wild.
where I'm like, I will follow this deity,
Right. So
like
this
what would
is
that
like,
be like?
and what's the setting is your paladin in? What is the setting you want to play in?
Ooh, I don't know that yet.
Okay. Hulker?
I think so. I never really got into playing caster characters like wizards in D&D or the equivalent in DreadLore. But I think it would be a nice change of pace, and it would also force me to learn more complicated game mechanics. Because being a wizard, they usually tell you, hey, don't do that as your first character. It's a lot unless you really read the rules.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And so you want to play in the setting of Craster proper, like the
Yeah, I could
post-apocalyptic,
absolutely.
with so you want to get into, what is it? Theurgy?
Theurgy, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. All right. And Jazzy, what are you thinking?
I had an idea where obviously I can't think of the guy's name right now, but from the Into Space series, the one that's from Prime, I thought it would be cool to use Prime as an environment and do ancestor characters for the people that we are playing as an Into Space. And I had this idea where, animal based still, but I have a weapon that's like two things. Like, for example, it's like a hammer for a gigantic grizzly bear, but when I'm in person form, it's like a bow and arrow with a weight on the bottom because it's so big. Because it looks like a hammer. You get what I'm saying? Like, just something that's like very like. I want to be a caster, but I'm still nervous. Cause it's a lot.
You're missing. Jack is giving you so much sass. He nudged your arm because you were moving it while it was his pillow, and then he put his head up and glared at you.
It
It's
is
because I was petting him and stopped at some point.
it is a lot. If it means anything, the character I play, Nord, is a wizard basically, but it's all he's picked all of the non-magical powers of being a wizard. I did that on purpose just because William was like, you can be anything you want in the book except for wizard. I was like, well, I want to be a wizard. So
I feel
but-
like he should have known that would have happened.
Oh yeah.
yeah. So he's a wizard but without any power.
That's amazing.
A magicless wizard. I love it.
Anyways,
It's like gluten-free bed.
yeah, it is. It is. Any last thoughts before we sign off? Are we? I definitely thank everyone for coming out.
I pitched DreadLore to a friend of mine that's been doing a homebrew for like several years, and he loves the system. So, what I want to, I guess, impart is like talk about it. It's cool. It's a good system. It works well, and it brought a lot of us together that are sitting right here.
I think we honestly, what brought Hulker, I guess, brought was brought to us, but I think we were all brought together because we like film.
Right. Well, the desire to create, you know,
The creative,
that's
yeah,
what
no, and I-
tabletopping is.
Sure.
You're creating a story, you know.
The
Sure.
desire to earn food by making art.
Yes, I also want
Yeah.
to art for food. That is a
Yeah.
part of it.
Will art for food. Well, that's a conversation for a different day. We'll talk about the economics of making a living through role playing game next time on After Hours. Thank you everyone for stepping in and joining us. This is not the Red Writ, this is After Hours, but I just want to give some thanks to JazziCabbage and Max and Hulker for being a part of this and participating. And a special thanks to all our Patreon members, Tim Roberts, Daniel Hulker, and Nostalgic, Couchfire Media, and Trois Reblay Productions. Please take a look at our link tree, DreadLore.
Don't forget to thank our sponsor tonight,
Thanks to our sponsor that I didn't understand.
the Winesburg, Ohio Parliament live action role playing troupe.
Yes, Winesburg, Ohio, LARPing. Gotcha.
So we might be near them. Can you make a reference?
LARP, LARP, LARP. Last thoughts before I hit the end button? Any last words?
Be safe out there. Everybody love everybody. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. Looking forward